Hey guys, Gaijin Hunter here, and I apologize for the wait, but now we're finally here with my impressions from all my play demos of Monster Hunter Cross in Sendai, Japan. Once again, I want to thank you guys for giving me the opportunity to go, and I got to play the game 7 times in about 14 different weapon style combinations. So I want to take that, plus all the information that I learned while I was there, watching other players play and talking to them, and put it together in one very long video. Now, I don't want the amount of video content I have to make me rush or to make me not say as much as I want to, so I'm going to make this into kind of a podcast-like video. So feel free to go ahead and put this almost in the background and listen away, and treat it as if it's a podcast. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the information that I brought back, and I hope you're excited about Monster Hunter Cross as I am. Now, in case you guys didn't know, Monster Hunter Cross is putting a real heavy focus on players coming up with their own ways to use each weapon. And to help facilitate that, they're adding 4 styles for each weapon, which is a totally new concept for the series. And along with that, they even have a thing called super skills, which charge up as you hit the monster, and once they're filled, you activate them by simply tapping an icon on the touchscreen. The combination, or as they say, the crossing, of different styles and skills can lead to some incredibly different approaches to each weapon. You can change your skills and your style in between hunts, but not during it. Think of it almost like an equipment set, and you just say, okay, what style are you going with? Okay, well, I'll go with this one, and stuff like that. So let's go ahead and do a recap of what the styles actually are. The guild style is the style that we've used in all the past Monster Hunter games, and even some weapons have gained some new tricks as well. This is considered the most balanced type, and all the others focus on a different angle of play. The idea, according to the producer, is that this is sort of like your base where you start, and depending on the monster and your playstyle, you can branch off and use different styles for a more stylized approach. You can equip 2 super skills on your touchscreen with the guild style. You don't lose anything, but you don't necessarily gain anything wildly different either. Now, the second style is brand new, and this is called the aerial style. Now, for this one, you're going to give up a lot of your stronger ground attacks and the ability to do a normal evade dodge. In return, you get a new move called the aerial evade. This is something that you do by holding forward and pressing the B button, or left and right in the B button. It looks like a forward somersault, and it does take a little bit longer than a normal evade, and it has slightly less invincibility frames. However, if you land on a monster, item, or even a teammate while you're in the middle of this roll, you can springboard off of them into the air, and from there are several different powerful moves and combos you can do. The idea really isn't about mounting. When you hear aerial, it's kind of natural to say, okay, this is like the Insight Glaive, I'm going to be mounting, but that's not it at all. It's about overcoming the reach of your weapon, or hitting a weak point that you normally wouldn't have been able to reach otherwise, or exploiting a large monster. The change is a lot more dramatic than it sounds, and you can only equip 1 super skill with this style as a result. The third style is called the striker style, and for this one you're going to give up actually quite a bit of your normal arsenal for a more simplified moveset that focuses more on making you hit fast and furious. And it's all with good reason. Not only can you equip 3 super skills in this style, but they also charge up a lot faster than the other ones. For Striker, it's all about exploiting and using these super skills over and over again and making them your main attack strategy. You lose quite a bit depending on the weapon, but the simplicity you gain is actually pretty nice, and the skills that you can use over and over are well worth it if you know what you're doing. Now, the fourth and final style, which they have not released a lot of information about, is called Bushido, which is almost like the way of the samurai. So this is one that they did not have available in the demo that I was at. I do think that they're going to be announcing it coming up very soon in the next few weeks, prior to the Tokyo Game Show demo. The Bushido style is aimed for veterans who want a high-risk, high-return gameplay style. Now, while it doesn't appear that you're going to lose any moves, so to say, like you do with the Striker style, it does likely seem that you're only going to be able to get 1 super skill when you're using this style. But in return, you get a new move called the Perfect Evade. If you can evade using the B button through a monster's attack at the perfect timing, almost like a parry in a fighting game like Street Fighter, it will activate some special move. Now, we don't know exactly what that move is, but we do know that it's different for each weapon, so I'm super excited to find out what it is. Now, we have gotten some video hints, whether it was through an accidentally leaked video or a small showcase, so we know that it's going to be pretty cool. Now if you don't know your monsters really well and you're not evading through their attacks, this style doesn't actually give you anything, and you'd be better off just going back to guild style. So this is going to be a real technical style I think a lot of solo players are going to like, and a lot of series veterans are going to really like as well. Now before I jump in and talk about the weapons and the styles and what I played, I actually just want to give you a quick little note about the super skills, which in Japanese are just called hunting skills. They're icons on your touch screen, but they don't always charge up at the same rate. For example, there's a common skill called the absolute evade, which by the way is an absolute delight to use. And it charges up pretty fast. I mean, you could use this thing easily anywhere from 5 to 7 times in a single hunt. Just to give you a little information about that skill, all you have to do is tap on that icon, and what happens is your hunter does this just sudden massive evade roll in the direction that you're facing. It's almost like an evasion with evade distance plus. If you keep holding R and using the circle pad, you'll actually break off into a sprint immediately afterwards. So if you want to run away and get safe, it's a perfect way to do it. Now for that evade jump that you do, you're invincible the entire time. So if you're in a pinch, all you gotta do is tap that icon and you're good. Another cool thing is that you don't have to run afterwards. You can just hit it to do a massive evade backwards into saved ground, and then you can use an item. You can like use a whetstone, you can use a potion, you can do anything you want. Because when you hit this button, whether your weapon is out or not, you end up with your weapon sheathed at the end. So it's super cool. They also had that Oasis super skill settable in this demo, but to be honest, I'm not very impressed with it. It takes a long time to charge up. You're only going to be able to do it once in a hunt, maybe around the 5-minute mark. And really when hunters go through it, they're only going to be getting like a potion every few seconds, so it's not really a big deal. Anyway, after using the skills, it became really obvious that these things are really powerful and really fun to use. So they're a lot more interesting than they sound on paper. So the difference between being able to equip 1 or 2 or 3 of them with the striker style is a lot more significant than you may have thought. Now since the demo did not have the Bushido style, I'm going to be giving my impressions from now on of the guild, the aerial, and the striker styles. So let's jump in. Okay, first up I want to talk a little bit about the Great Sword. Now the Great Sword is almost everybody's bread and butter for the series ever since it started, right? Now the guild style doesn't seem to really add or change anything from what we have in Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate. However, of course, with the guild style you do get the ability to equip 2 super skills. For most people, and I think it was already set for us, was the absolute evade, and also the skill that when you use it, it makes your next attack more powerful. How much more powerful? I don't know. But anyways, guild style is just solid and fun. Now the striker style is actually a bit different. You lose the power to do a strong charge, which some of you might actually not know how to do. But after you do a level 3 charge, if you hold back on the circle pad and hold X, you'll actually do a thing called a strong charge, which is more powerful. So you're going to give up the ability to do that, but what you get in return is that in this series, if you overcharge your level 3, it just goes off and it actually becomes downgraded to the power of a level 2 charge. That goes away, so you can actually charge up to a theoretical almost level 4 charge, but it's all just level 3. Now what this really means is that it gives you more flexibility and timing of when to unleash it without any penalty of going a little bit over the length of the level 3, which is a lot better than it sounds. Not only that though, is after you do a level 3 charge and then you do the big super swipe, normally you could only evade out of it and that was it, or you'd be stuck. But with the striker style you can actually hit X and A to do a behind the back swipe right afterwards, so it's a pretty fast combo, so you can be pretty furious with striker. Now the skill that makes it so that your next attack is more powerful is really fun to use, especially with striker style, because of the amount that the gauge Now the skill that makes it that your next attack is more powerful is actually really big for striker style, because with one level 3 charge you fill up over half the gauge, like 2/3 of that gauge for the hunter. So if you hit a monster 2 times with a nice charged shot, you can go ahead and then use that skill. So think about that. Every 3rd hit, if you're doing it right, is going to be based on that skill and having even more power. So striker could be pretty powerful with Greatsword. Now when it came time for me to play Greatsword, I chose the aerial style, and I have to admit it was really fun. You give up the ability to do charge attacks on the ground, which I know when most of you hear that, you're just gonna be like, okay, nope, I'm not doing it. But just hear me out. So you get a really awesome aerial charge attack in exchange. Now the one thing I didn't like about the aerial style in general for a lot of the other weapons was that because you're doing this massive somersault, you don't really want to be using that evade for moving around. So there was just constantly sheathing my weapon and getting closer to the monster. But with the great sword, that's already part of the way that you use the weapon, so it actually didn't bother me at all. And one of the cool things is with aerial style, when you do a draw attack with the great sword, it's actually a small little hop forward with a hit. And after that, you can evade, you can follow it up with an aerial evade and jump off the monster. You can do all sorts of stuff. But because it's a draw attack, you're already next to the monster. So if you just hit forward and B, you're pretty much always guaranteed that you're going to be able to jump off the monster and do an aerial attack. Now another cool thing to note is that about the aerial attack is that you can do a single strike, or if you hold the X button until you fall down to the ground, you'll do a charge aerial attack. Now unlike the ground ones where you sort of had to time it out and release it properly, with the aerial one you just hold X and it just happens automatically, so there's no real chance of overcharging, which is really nice. I'm a little curious that if you put focus, whether or not it would allow for another level of charge, but I would have to say that I probably doubt it. So in my opinion, if you don't take advantage of the strong charge to begin with, then I almost want to say that you should give up guild style and go for striker. I mean, that super attack that makes your next attack more powerful is really great, and again, you're only really at this point, as far as we know, losing the ability to do a strong charge. Now next up is longsword. Now this is the weapon that I'm not very good at, and I kind of said that I wanted to main it in Monster Hunter Cross because I do believe that the best way to get really good at a weapon is to use it from the very start of the game. You're sort of forced to learn with it, you know what I mean? Now for guild style, I'm hoping that they increase the motion values or something, because the longsword I felt was pretty lacking in the previous game, and I haven't seen anything particularly different in Monster Hunter Cross. Now for the striker style with longsword, you gain the ability not to lose your entire spirit gauge just like the older games. So after you're red, it goes down to yellow, but not back to absolutely nothing. So this is going to make a lot of the older players who used to really love longsword, they're going to be pretty happy about that. Now I didn't play the striker style, so I really can't confirm it, but for as far as I've heard is you can't do a fade slash to the left and right when using this style, which would make sense considering all the other stuff that you lose for the other weapons, and the mentality that the striker style is like you should be in the face of the monster the entire time. Now aerial style is the one that I got to try. Now you can't do a spirit round slash on the ground at all with the aerial style, so if you want to level up your spirit gauge, you have to do it through aerial attacks. But the good news is that the aerial combo is actually rather easy to pull off. You literally can do spirit slash 1 and 2 right in the air and land and then do the spirit slash, so it's pretty easy. Still, jumping around like that with the longsword is a huge change from the normal way that you do the longsword on the ground. So in the short amount of time that I had with it, I had no idea what the right approach was. Now I'm still not giving up on longsword. I mean, the Bushido style, Bushido is the way of the samurai, so my assumption is that the Bushido style is going to be off the rails for the longsword. So I'm really looking forward to information on that one. So next up is the sword and shield. Now like this thing was already pretty darn powerful to begin with, and as if it wasn't powerful enough, the guild style has been buffed up even more. So now you have these special coating items that you can apply to your blade that do different things, like raise its affinity, raise its attack, maybe a defense boost, we don't know, but we know that there's several of them. Now the coolest thing is that they don't just last for like 60 seconds, they lasted in the demo at least for a whopping 3 minutes, which is pretty crazy. Now for the aerial style for sword and shield, apparently you can still do normal evades, but I really haven't verified that yet. The standard bread and butter combo, the RX XXAA combo, has actually been changed for the aerial, so it makes me wonder what is the right approach and what is the next major combo for this style. I haven't played it, so I didn't know. Now I tried the striker style, which was pretty interesting. You lose the backstep and that sort of charge attack as a result, but instead you do get 3 super skills to equip, and man, they charge fast. With weapons that hit a lot like this and the dual blades, super skills charge up really fast. So that round force super skill that you saw in the opening trailer a billion times you're invincible the entire time when you use it. So I used it over and over again when I was going up against Horodo Horodu. Every time I saw that stupid owl about to pound the ground, I almost always had it charged up, so I was able to use it. I hit him and I was safe the entire time, so it really made me enjoy the weapon a lot more than I thought I would. So next up is dual blades. Now the guild style didn't seem, at least from what I saw, to have gained anything new, but then again it got that like awesome slingshot attack in Arc Demon mode back in Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate, so I'm not complaining. The aerial style is apparently what the lead producer Kojima-san has been playing lately. Now I'm not sure exactly about what you might lose and what you might gain from this outside the aerial attacks, but what he did say is that the entire dynamic of the weapon changes a lot more than you would think when you add in the aerial style. So he said it was just fresh, it was different, it was cool. So hey, if he's into it, I'm pretty intrigued. Now I got to try out the striker style and I fell in love. Now I am not a huge dual blades user at all. I generally find it a little bland, or I'm not very good at it or something, but this one was really fun. So you lose the Arc Demon mode completely, which is insane, right? I mean, you don't have Arc Demon mode. So all you have is your normal attacks and your demon mode. So it's back to stamina management and making sure that you don't get hit so you don't get knocked out of demon mode. But there's some really cool benefits. So in striker style, the speed in which you do the demon stance is actually faster than it's ever been. And not only that, you can evade and demon dash right out of it. So if you do the hit and then you're about to get hit, you can evade right afterwards and go ahead and do it again. So it's really easy to use, it's fun, it doesn't feel boring or tedious, and you charge up those skills a lot. And I have to say, the one that you saw in the trailers, which I like to call the yo-yo, is unbelievable. I mean, you do it's almost like the sword and shield one, right? You do this like spinning round slash, but you get to do it 3 times. And you can change your direction almost like an amusement ride every single slash. So you're almost always hitting the monster, and that was just tons of fun. To give you an idea how fast those skills charge up with the dual blades, I was able to use that skill about 6 times in my hunt against Horodo Horodu, which only lasted like 8 minutes. So we're talking almost once a minute I was able to use that move, which is pretty crazy. So next up is Hammer, which seems not to get much of an update every game. I know the whole point of the weapon is the simplicity is what makes it really enticing, but for someone like me who plays all the other weapons, Hammer can seem kind of boring. So the guild style, at least as far as we know right now, doesn't seem to have been changed at all from Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate. The aerial style though, you do get to do a face smack in the air, and kind of defying the laws of physics, if you actually hit the monster once, you can follow it up with a second aerial hit. It's pretty cool to see, but I have to question how easy it's going to be to aim and actually hit the head with the aerial jump, because you do fly pretty high in a way. Now I'll have to tell you, like with the Great Macau and smaller monsters, it's actually really hard hitting the head and knowing where you're going to land. I'm sure there's a trick to it that we just need to learn. Now when I played Hammer, I tried the striker style. You get natural focus on this mode, which actually is bad for me because I never ever use focus with the hammer. I really love that uppercut that you get, and I don't like the idea of charging right past it. But the killer for me, and actually one of the other producers as well, she kind of didn't get into it, was that because the striker idea is that you're not doing big attacks, you're doing small attacks but fast and furious, they actually took out the home run of the 3-hit combo. So normally you would do like a 1, 2, and you do a home run with your normal X combo. Instead of having this really cool like home run slam at the end, you just do 3 downward slam attacks, which to me was really unceremonious almost. I just didn't feel gratification from it at all. That, and I really hate the spin attack, and you charge into it really fast, and you lose the ability to do the slam attack where you sort of swing the hammer around and hit downward. So for me, to be frank, I did not enjoy the striker hammer. However, I'm going to assume that the super skills for hammer are probably like over the top. So who knows, maybe it's gonna be worth it. Okay, the next one is the hunting horn, which, as you know, I'm a huge user and lover of hunting horn. Now for guild and all the other styles actually, there's actually been a... Now for the guild and actually all the other styles as well, there's been a pretty large revision / addition to the weapon. Normally if you do an attack, you get a note, and that still happens. However, if you hit the monster with the attack that you're playing instead of just swinging in midair, that note becomes a special graphic. I'll just call it a special note. Now, if you play an entire song using nothing but special notes, meaning that you've hit the monster with all your attacks, you'll automatically play not only the song that you're playing at the time, but you'll also play the song that you last played. That's pretty insane. So if you played attack up, and there was, let's say, a few seconds afterwards, 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 20 seconds even, and then you play movement up, but you do it after hitting the monster twice, you're going to get not only movement up, but you're going to get either an encore for attack up, or you're going to play attack up again. That's insane. Now, I did a test. I played attack up, or whatever it was, I think it was defense up, and then I played immediately movement up, and then I encored it. Encoring a song when you have these special notes will additionally encore the previous song as well. So you're getting 4 songs for the price of pretty much 1. So in the hands of an expert, this is going to be a game changer. It's going to make the horn fantastic for all the styles. Now for the striker style, they actually changed the moveset so much that I don't even know how to describe it. It's super simplistic. Like, you don't have the behind the back slam. Your X is only a handle smack. It's not even like the left attack. And you do have your A button right swing, but that's about it. I know some people said that it's really similar, I think, to either, was it Frontier or older games? But I didn't try it because I don't know those games and it seems a little weird. So I tried the guild style and also the aerial style. Now for the aerial style, you can actually play 2 notes in the air when you do an attack. And unlike some of the other weapons, it actually has pretty long reach, so you're more likely to actually hit the monster in an aerial attack with the horn than you are with other weapons. And that's great, because if you hit the monster with these notes, you might be able to play the special note song and get 2 songs for the price of 1. So I think it's going to be interesting, but for me, again, with all the aerial styles, it's very jarring when you first try it. It's very different. So I had a hard time like getting out of my head the idea that you don't do a normal evade after an attack, because I end up doing this huge jump somersault, and it takes adjusting. Now another thing to note, and this is not unique to any of the styles, is that they do have a special skill where you do like sort of a wind up swing and then this huge shock wave. I saw 3 different hunters hitting on Hororo Horuru and I couldn't resist. So to try it out, I hit the super skill, and I'll tell you right now, all 3 of those guys went flying. Like, they went totally flying, so you gotta be careful. Now, I could be wrong, and I really hope I am, but I can't not mention this. But when I was playing the guild horn, I noticed that some of my attacks that normally really wouldn't disturb my teammates, like just like the A button attack, seem to have like launched some of my teammates in the air, like a bad launch, not the one where they can do a jump attack. So I could be wrong, but I do think that it's possible that they've changed the horn where they want to reward you for being more aggressive, but they're also going to make you be a little bit more careful that you're not hitting your teammates. So we'll see. As we get to play the game some more, we'll check it out. I know a lot of you horn users were going to ask me, hey, the Hororo Horuru horn that they had, what songs did it play? So I'll let you know. It appeared to be a low rank version of the weapon, so it didn't seem to be anything particularly special. And you have to remember that this is a mid-tier monster, almost low tier. It's not meant to be like a high tier monster. So there was no 4-note songs, just 3 notes. And the horn that they had played stamina, negate stamina small, reduce wind, defense up small, health recover small, and then a combined health recover small plus cure poison. So I have no idea if that's going to be the final actual songs for the horn, but it doesn't seem unlikely, so maybe that's it. Now next up is the lance, which a lot of you may know is one of my main weapons. Now the guild lance got a pretty big change in my opinion. Now normally you can do a 3 thrust combo with the lance. It's just a 1, 2, 3 and that's it, and you evade and you do it again. They've now actually changed the 3rd hit in that combo. So the 3rd thrust in the combo they're now calling a strong thrust. It takes a little bit more time to do, but it does like 3 rapid hits in 1 shot. So this is going to be making lances much more, I think, viable for elemental weapons. So that's really cool. Not only that, the strong hit can be done either forward or upward. It doesn't have to always be upward like it used to be. And it also is the very first major lance move that comes with super armor. So in case you guys don't know, super armor means that if you get hit by a teammate or something small in the middle of the move, you're not going to get interrupted. The lance has none of that, which is why any other player, especially longswords or switch axes or people with a long reach, they will disrupt a lance user so bad that you're not even able to attack, and it can be pretty frustrating to do online. So the fact that we have a super armor move is pretty cool. The pacing is actually quite different from the normal 3 thrusts, so I think the weapon feels quite different actually as a result. So aerial lance lets you keep the new 3rd hit, which I'm assuming that they weren't going to do because a lot of the aerial styles take away your ground moves, but they didn't. They let you keep it, which is cool. However, you do lose the ability to do back hops, and sidesteps become a normal evade, so if you're an evade lancer, aerial is not going to be your style. So as strange as it sounds, I actually think aerial is going to be more of a guard lance style, because you can use your guard to get in really close, and then when you're close, you can then do an aerial jump and hit the monster. So interesting, I wasn't really expecting that. Now striker style is what I tried, and I really loved it. You don't get the new 3rd hit attack actually, it's just like it was in Monster Hunter for Ultimate. But that also means that you can attack more aggressively, and man, the gauges, just like the dual blades or the sword and shield, they charge up really fast. So just 3 sets of like a 3-hit combo is enough to charge the shield assault skill. And that's a really fun one to use because you're invincible the entire time and you just do this huge rush at the enemy. So if you need a close distance, like this thing, you can use it over and over again. It's really fun. So you do lose the ability to do also counterattacks, the swipe with X and A, which none of us really use. And even if you're doing like the charge with forward X, Y thingy, or the special, you can't do a jump in the air when you're doing your lance advanced charge. So you do lose quite a bit, but if you're not a guard lancer and you're an evade lancer, striker sounds like where the party's at. Okay, finally the Gunlance. I know many of you love the Gunlance and you wanted to know what it's like. So I went out and I made sure I played it and I checked out everything about it, so let's just jump in. So the Guild Gunlance and all the other styles have a rather large revision. As you know by now, there's a new heat gauge that's been added. So as you do a Gunlance shell, or you shoot like bullets, the marker moves from your heat gauge from the left to the right. It goes from yellow to orange to red. Now as you go up and your weapon gets hotter, the power of your physical thrust attack become more powerful. Now because they locked out the menu, I wasn't able to tell how more powerful you get for each level, so sorry about that. Now while the heat gauge sounds really cool and it's like, okay, I'm just going to shell and I'm going to increase my attack and that's going to be it, you actually have to be really careful once you get into the red, because once you get into the red, you're going to be doing maximum like thrust damage, but if you go over the red and you go all the way to the right, you actually enter an overheat state, which is really bad. So what happens is that your meter on the gauge goes all the way back to the left, so your thrust attacks are weak. You also can't do Wyvern's Fire. It counts just like overheating after you do Wyvern's Fire, but without the huge explosive, so you don't want to do that. I suppose if you're really just mainly doing shells and you really don't care about poking with your lance, it's not really going to matter to you, but still, it's not a very good thing. And as counter as intuitive as it sounds, you would think that, okay, when you use a Wyvern's Fire and you overheat, your marker is going to go all the way to the left as well, but it doesn't. What happens is it actually falls back about 5 ticks or 5 shots on the gauge. So if you go all the way to red, and you are at a risk for going over, you can actually do Wyvern's Fire strategically and then fall back into the orange, and then it gets locked in there for the entire time that you're overheated. So you get like 2-3 minutes where you're enjoying like higher attack power without the risk of losing or overheating. So again, it's a little wonky, but you know, I'll take it. Now the Striker Gunlance, you can now do a triple forward thrust combo. So this is almost like a normal lance now. You can just poke, 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 which is pretty interesting. And that's going to let you obviously utilize the extra power of the shelling heat that you get to do even more damage. And the more that you're poking the monster, the more often you're going to be able to use those super skills. Now, the super fire explosion skill that we've seen in the trailer actually doesn't affect your heat gauge, so as soon as that thing lights up, you can do it without having to worry about overheating, so that was pretty cool. However, with the Striker Gunlance, you do lose the ability to do the downward lance slam, which, as Gunlancers like you guys probably know, that's how you generally want to be doing a full burst, or like unloading all 5 of your bullets if you're using a normal type Gunlance. So I actually think that Striker Gunlance is more geared for long shot and even wide shot, but not normal. Now, aerial Gunlance is what I tried, and you know, I'd been discouraged by some of the aerial styles, but like the Greatsword, I really enjoyed this. The forward plus X button, like sort of charge and attack that you do, actually gets like a little hop now, so you actually get extra mobility. And I found it actually really easy to move around with. With the other weapons, the aerial evade was a little jarring and I had a really hard time moving around, but with the Gunlance I could just use the forward plus X and I felt really good. It's also really fun to do a jump attack because when you're in the air you can shell, but you can also do a lance slam down, so if you know that you're landing next to the monster, you can unload a full burst right when you land, so that's really cool. So I think aerial style is going to be best used with a normal shot Gunlance, which I don't know if it's actually final in the game, but the Dino Valdo Gunlance that they had us using in the demo was a normal shot one, so I don't know if he is normal, but maybe he is. So next up is the Switch Axe. Now this is another one that a lot of you heavy donators asked me to try out, so I did. So the Guild Switch Axe doesn't appear to have any new moves, but a lot of people who played it are reporting that the axe mode seemed more powerful. So that's been something that I've been wanting for the last few games, was a good reason to use the fabulous axe mode and not just use the sword mode. Even in the control guide that they had set up, which of course is prone to error, they listed out combos that they recommended for each playing style, and for the guild style it only listed axe combos, so it could mean that the axe has become more powerful. The aerial switch axe was actually pretty disappointing. It's something that I tried and it takes so getting used to, because the whole bread and butter of the switch axe as we've used to play it was all about those side steps, and you don't get those at all in aerial style. So I actually, even though the people on Capcom TV play really bad, I actually will excuse them for the horrible aerial switch axe because it's just a completely different weapon. I'm sure it's really good if you know how to use it, but you cannot approach this thing like you normally do. It's just different. I mean, one thing is that just like the horn, it's got a long reach, so when you do an aerial like sort of vault jump, it's actually pretty easy to connect with a monster even if you sort of overshoot them or you jump too far. You can only do your elemental burst while in the air. I don't know how many of you guys even use that attack so much, but you can't do it on the ground with aerial style. And they even added a new morph attack path, which is after you do an upward axe attack with X plus A, you can now hit R to morph right into sword. So aerial switch axe, very different. So I played the Striker switch axe, and to be honest, I really didn't notice any difference between Striker and, let's say, like Guild. The only major thing, and I don't really think this is a huge deal, is that when I was in the sword mode, by hitting X over and over, instead of doing the 2-hit, I was doing just the up down standard strike that you had back in like Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate. But pressing the A button gave me the double swipe anyway, so again, I really don't know the difference, but you did charge up the transform / super skill faster. But to be honest, that super skill takes like 5 to 8 seconds in full to complete. So unless a monster just got mounted and was just downed, or you have it in a trap, I actually don't think you're going to hit with all of it. So it's cool looking, but you got to use it with caution. So next up to talk about is the Charge Blade. Now I actually have to apologize. I made a decision not to try the Charge Blade in order to test the other weapons, because I mean, we kind of have an idea what the Charge Blade can do in each style already, and the Charge Blade, face it, is already too versatile, so we knew that it was going to get a little bit of nerfage come this game. So if you really wanted to hear my hands-on impressions of Charge Blade, I'm sorry. So it doesn't appear to have any changes since 4U, but again, that makes sense because You guys didn't get Monster Hunter 4 in the West, but it actually got a lot of different changes when it went to Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate and 4G. So, you know, I wasn't expecting anything. One big thing that did change though is the Ultra Burst. As you know, in Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate, when you do the Ultra Burst or the Ultra or whatever Elemental Discharge, it unleashes this huge shockwave after the actual axe strike. So even if you miss with the axe, you still hit with the shockwave and generally KO monsters like crazy. So they've changed it now, so all you get is one huge axe attack. So if you miss that, you miss everything. I'm also betting that the KO value is going to be lower, although I don't know for sure. And it might have been a typo, but the control layout paper that they had stated that if your shield is glowing yellow, which happens when it's like about to disappear, it says that it's actually weaker than a red shield. So it's almost like your capabilities go down once you get on the brink of losing it. Again, I don't know if that's true or not, because it could have just been a mistake, because they do make mistakes on these control things, but I thought I'd mention it. Now the Striker Charge Blade, you lose the ability to do the shield thrust, but you do gain a really cool guard point for the X and A charge and attack. So if you hit X and A and you do sort of like that run-in attack, there's now a charge point added to that. I'm really curious to see what happens, like when you hit with the guard point, does it stop you in the middle of the attack? Or is it just that you guard an attack and you don't take damage? I don't know. They keep showing us that Energy Blade skill, but to be honest, like we were watching some other players try out the Striker Charge Blade, and even as a striker, that thing takes forever to charge up. Like you'd be lucky if you can use it more than once or twice in one hunt. So I'm assuming it's stupidly powerful if you use all files and you don't miss, but still seems, I don't know, it was a little disappointing. The Aerial Charge Blade, you can now do a Super Burst from the air. They did say that it's a Super Burst, not the Ultra Burst. So although in the video it looked like you lost your shield charge, I think maybe that was just the way that they cut it. Maybe you don't ultimately, because it said Super, not Ultra. I haven't really heard much about Aerial Charge Blades, so I don't really know what they've changed. So maybe next event, if I can go, I'll try that. Next up is the Insight Glaive. Now the Insight Glaive is in the same position as the Charge Blade, and the fact that face it was already a little too powerful in Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate, so we weren't expecting any additional buffs. If anything, we were expecting a lot of nerfing. But I mean, one of the cool things that I'm expecting though is with all these new shots that they've added for the gunner, I can actually see them adding new types of kinsects, and maybe that might be a way to balance out the weapon. The Guild Glaive is really just the same as we used to use it, so they didn't take anything away, which is really nice. There's no speed slowdown, and the buffs that you get are just the same as they are in 4 Ultimate. However, it is worth noting that the mount attack that you do, you don't mount that often in this game. You just don't. They've upped the threshold like a lot. I think in most of our hunts we were able to mount 2 times. At the maximum 3, but that's because we were all trying for it. So you mount much less in this game, but when you do, it's a much greater event. So when you do mount a monster now, your teammates, where in 4 Ultimate, if they hit the monster, it can make it flinch and kick you off. It's the opposite now. So the idea is that if you mount a monster, everyone can just wail on it all they want, and instead of not only not knocking you off, it actually helps you. Like the rate in which your gauge goes up actually gets easier, so you can actually have an easier time taking down a monster if everybody is wailing on it. So the producer was really funny, Kojima-san. He was telling everybody as he was walking by the table, he's like, no, go ahead and attack the monster, like charge up your super skills, it's a good time. So really it does have a really festive feel to it, and take out the negative stuff and put in nothing but the positive, so that was a cool change. One thing to note is that even if you're using the guild style with the glaive, I didn't notice that you can actually get any more mounts than if you're using an aerial style. So I don't think they distinguish between the two, but just because they made mounting so much harder in this game, like just the threshold of mount damage that you need to do is higher, it just really just changes the dynamic. Now they did make one change that I think is going to annoy some people like crazy. and that is that your Kinsect now will knock around your teammates. Now I can't imagine how bad this is going to be if you're a Lancer and you're hunting with someone who is really bad aim with their Kinsect. It's going to be frustrating. So the aerial insect glaive is actually a lot more fun than it sounds. You'd be wondering like, well, if I can do an upward jump, why would I want to do aerial? The whole idea, if you watch the video as well on their website, is that the aerial jump is actually a very aggressive, forward moving attack. It's not like that really high upward one that you do normally, so I think aerial glaive has a lot of merit. Striker glaive is what I tried, and to be honest, it was really different. For the Kinsect, all you do is you press the A button and it just sends the Kinsect out. All the bigger A moves were all changed, so basically you were attacking with the exit button the entire time. And then for the Kinsect, it's A to send it out and RA to call it back. But they also changed your main combo that you do. So everything felt like it was just harder and different. So I don't know. I did try out that super skill that they had with the bugs that glow and they sort of circle around you. And while it did seem that they did decent damage against the monster, they also hit your teammates. So I don't know if that's a skill that I'm going to want to be using. So at the end of this, with the Charge Blade and the Insect Glaive, I can comfortably say that from my perspective, that both of them got pulled back a little bit so that the other weapons could catch up. But both of them have not been nerfed that bad at all. So they're still very viable and incredibly powerful. So don't worry, if you're into the Charge Blade and the Glaive, don't feel left out in this game. They're going to be great, just be realistic. Like, they were pretty versatile and pretty powerful, so we were expecting this. So next up is the bow, and I will just say this, I am in love. The guild bow has gotten a massive boost. So first off, in the guild style, you can do both arc shots and power shots with the same bow. So the way it works is that if you want to do an arc, when you're charging your shot, just press the A button and it'll do an arc shot. For the power shot, you can only do it now after you shoot. So if you shoot arrows and then you hit the A button, you'll follow up with a power shot. So you can have both of them and it feels super intuitive. Not only that, but if you press B right now with the bow, you do like a back hop, and not a lot of people really used it, but now they're going to, because if you hit B after a back hop, like one more time, you do this like super cool back dive, almost like a Gears of War style like back dive, which automatically charges your bow into a level 3 shot, and it keeps you facing the monster straight forward. It's insane. I mean, I love it to death. It was so much fun to use. The guild bow just felt so powerful, so fun, and so flexible that, I want to main it. It felt so much fun to play for me. They've also added a bunch of new coatings as well. So you get sort of like a level 1 power coating and a level 2 power coating. And they even had like a level 1 or 2 elemental coating as well. My guess is that they're probably powering down the normal power coating in order to make it level 1. But that also means that you'll have more inventory, which means the amount of times that you need to craft items is going to go down. So this is actually really good. So in the aerial style for bow, you lose the ability to do the power shots on the ground, but you can do them in the air if you do an aerial jump. I'll be honest with you though, I really don't like the concept of the aerial gunner weapons, especially bow. Now while they look really cool, the whole idea to me is that with a gunner, that you're willing to put up with reduced armor stats, right? Like lower defense, because you know that you're able to fight at a distance and are generally more safe. But the aerial style practically begs you to get close to the monster, so it actually feels to me like a little bit of a bad trade-off. The striker style for bow, you lose the ability to use arc shots, but you can still do power shots. Now, what we saw earlier from the leaked video though is that some of the super skills for the bow are going to be off the rails. Also that accelerate rain that they had, the one where you shoot up your arrow and then it gives you both movement speed up and focus, it charges up really fast, so you can actually activate that thing pretty easily. So I actually think if you're an aggressive player, you can have that thing active pretty much the entire hunt. So for that alone, and also some of the other skills that we know are coming, I think striker style bow is going to be really compelling. Ultimately, I think bow is going to be an incredibly hot weapon for Monster Hunter Cross. I think people who have been waiting to get into gunner, this is going to be their way in. So next up is the bow guns, and I'm just going to say light bow gun because that's what I used. I actually didn't try the heavy bow gun at all. So the guild style for the light bow gun has what they call now like these preloaded shots. And these are special shots that you probably can't get elsewhere in the game, and they're already part of your weapon, so it's not like you have to load them or equip them or anything like that. But they had really interesting ones. For example, they had one that was called a flashbang shot, and just like you would think, like you'd shoot it out, it would travel a small distance and then explode, and you can use that like a normal flashbang to knock monsters out of the air. So support gunner is going to be pretty fun, I think, with this type of shot. They also had weird ones like status boost ones where you'd shoot it and it would just sort of like blow up around your hunter in like this aura. And if you were in the blast radius, it would increase your stats. Like there was like a defense up one and there was like a power up one. So I do think that these new shots are going to be a pretty big deal. Now the bow guns can now shoot in the air. So if you just jump off a small little ledge, you can shoot at a monster, and that is super cool. So with the aerial style, at least with the light bow gun, although I found it interesting, I really didn't feel that the aerial like shots were meaningful unless you were using a rapid shot. So for example, if I had like an elemental on rapid and you do a jump, you have to press B to do a jump, and then it jumps off the monster. You have to press X plus A for some reason to do the initial shot. If you're using rapid, at that point you'll just do like 5 shots in a row and that's it. But if you're not using a rapid shot one that you have to press XA to do 1 shot, and then you have to press, I think, A again, A for a second shot. It's not very intuitive. It felt really weird. The amount of time it took to do 1 aerial jump and to shoot off once or twice, I could have did like 4 shots on the ground. So there's probably something I'm missing, but I just didn't feel like the trade-off was really there for aerial bow guns. It looks really cool though. I don't know, I'm kind of guessing that the idea is that you jump at a monster that's charging at you, and therefore you can hit them and be behind them and at a good distance afterwards. So maybe that's how they were planning it. Striker light bow gun, I have absolutely no idea what's different between it and the guild style. So ditto there. I did try the super skill. It's like that evasive one where you evade backwards but you leave like a little explosion, and it almost feels like you're being launched out of a cannon. Like if you ever want to run to the other end of the map, you just hit the button and you go, like it flies you back like ridiculous amounts. So it makes you really safe, but as far as using that as an attack, I really don't see it happening. For the heavy bow striker, I do know that the heavy bow gun, you lose the ability to use siege mode, and aerial mode, it's the same thing, that if you jump on an enemy or jump over them, you only do multiple shots if it's a shot that you had on siege mode. Otherwise, it's just like 1 or 2 shots. So again, I'm really not a bow gun user, so I'm gonna have to apologize. So if I sound negative, it's probably because I, 1, don't understand bow guns, and 2, the aerial style is just very different. I think people are just gonna have to learn it. I think there's something special there. We just have to find it. So I don't know. I mean, it could be really fun. Like I could see like really big enemies like Gamuto. Like you can like jump all the way over them and just blast them and probably like break their back or something. That could be pretty cool. So that wraps up my impressions of the weapons. I hope that I was able to give you some more insight, and at least tell you what I thought about them. Ultimately, I had an absolute blast playing the game. I mean, I played it for almost 2 hours collectively, and I didn't want to leave. I just wanted to keep playing it. So if you guys are worried about whether the game is fun, it is a blast. So I think you guys are going to enjoy it. So I just want to take a quick little note now and talk about the 3 monsters that we got to hunt, because I got to hunt them quite a few times. So the Great Macau, which you've seen in several demos on Capcom TV, there's really not much to say about him, except I will say that for a starting off monster, he's actually more agile than the last few games, which I thought was pretty cool, because you don't get hit that hard, but it is a really good lesson in, like, you have a small opening, what do you do? You have a medium opening, what do you do? So I think it's going to be a really great tutorial monster and someone to practice all the different styles on. Hororu is the most annoying monster I think I've ever fought in Monster Hunter, like even more annoying than Giganox. Like this, oh my gosh. So the reverse control status attack that it does if you get hit by the yellow dust is brutal. I mean, not only do you get hit by a massive attack, but then you want to run or dodge or get out of there. So okay, like he hits you and you hit back and B, only you end up diving right next to him because your controls are reversed. So it's so bad. Now you can eat a bitter bug to actually cure the effect, but if you've ever eaten a bitter bug, which you may have not have, your hunter does this like animation at the end. So Hororu likes to take advantage of that. So you eat a bitter bug, and the moment you're cured, it hits you with its sonar radar and makes you fall asleep. It ends up being like this horrible cycle. So Hororu, I'm sorry, but you are so annoying. And what makes it worse is that like it's really small. It's not that big of a monster. So jump up, it's going to pound down and do the reverse control. So you wait for it, right? It pounds on the ground and then you run in there to hit it, and it has like a 1 second delay, and then it does like this like circular like wing slap, almost like a Raytheon like turning around, and so then you get hit off again. It's so annoying. So at the very end of the day, I actually went back with a guild bow, and it was like target practice. I mean, the thing couldn't do anything against me. It was the most gratifying feeling teaching that monster who was boss. Now Nargacuga is also back, and it actually hasn't changed much. So if you're really used to fighting Nargacuga, we found it easier to beat that monster than Hororu. Like Narga was pretty much how you've always known it. Now some of you might look at that as a negative thing, like okay, well, they're going to half-ass, they're just going to put in a monster without doing a huge overhaul. I look at that as a really good thing. If they're willing to take a key monster and not try to reinvent it and not try to overhaul it, it means that we can probably expect a really good amount of roster of monsters that are coming back to this game. So I'm cool with that. It was really fun to fight, and I did get to mount it. So the mount animation for Nargacuga is actually different than the other monsters in Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate. So when you jump on it, it tries to shrug you off, like it gets almost low to the ground like a cat, tries to shake you off, and then does this almost like spin rotation as it jumps backwards. So it's different. It wasn't necessarily hard to beat it, but it was a nice surprise that they went through the effort to make a new type of mounting animation. So that was cool. And like Zenogre, I think they did a really good job of just programming it so that it still does the same things it's always done. Like it still does the forward jumps, it still does the massive jump, but it's much more aware of the elevated surfaces in the arena that we faced it, and it was just, the monster took good advantage of it, so I thought it was really fun. Anyways, that ends my impressions. I'm sorry this ended up being like a podcast thing, but I really just wanted to share everything with you guys without worrying about running out of video or something like that. I'm sorry if I didn't get to try the weaponry style that you wanted. I tried to hit off all the top donations, and then ones that we haven't seen on Capcom TV. And I'm really looking forward to Bushido style. I mean, that's 14 different types of weapons we haven't seen yet, right? I mean, I think they're going to be revealing it coming up at Tokyo Game Show, and I could not be more hyped. I mean, this game essentially has like 56 different weapons. It's nuts. But when you take a weapon, it's not just one, right? I mean, you've got 4 different styles to play with, so I can see where like you figure out, you get to a monster, then you hit a roadblock, and you're like, this thing's too fast. Or it's really big and I just want to pound on it. Okay, I'm going to switch to Striker. Or it's really big, or it flies in the air. Okay, I'm going to go Aerial, I'm going to knock it down. Or like, okay, I know this monster like Narga really well. I'm going to go Bushido and I'm going to take advantage of that. So, or you just go Guild. So I think it's going to be incredibly fun, and I think the amount of different sets and armors and just approaches are going to be really unique. So I can't wait to see what everyone comes up with. So anyways, I'm rambling at this point, so I hope you enjoyed this kind of podcast like video, and I hope you enjoyed my impressions. Thank you guys again for sending me, and happy hunting.